Hello. Hi. Could anyone just confirm if I'm being audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're audible.
Yeah.
you
Thank you so
can.
much. Okay.
Yes, you.
Yeah. So, hey guys, welcome to the 11th edition of NCTF. We are very proud to welcome Aniket Amdekar, sir, who is the General Manager of Cyber Defense Education from Great Learning, here to give a talk. Uh, Mr. Aniket Amdekar is an accomplished cybersecurity professional. He has more than 15 years of experience in cybersecurity. He's led the cybersecurity posture monitoring and threat intelligence for multiple teams. So it's a huge honor for him to be here with us. Before we start with the talk, I'd like to thank the sponsors for this event for supporting our endeavor and making this event possible. So our event sponsors are Salesforce. I'd like to thank our diamond sponsors Zoho, VMware, CrowdStrike, Cred. Uh, our gold sponsor H&R Block, and also thanks to our silver sponsor H&R Block. Also, participants, please note that if you have a doubt, you could post your questions on the chat box, which we will deal with after the talk is over. There'll be a doubt clearing session right after. So yeah, I think we can start. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you everyone for joining in. Let's get started. Now, before we get started, I wanted to know about a bit about all of you. So, where are you joining from? Can you put that into the chat window? Which location are you connecting from? West Bengal, Kerala, Delhi, okay. West Bengal again, Nepal, Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, Bangalore, okay, Mumbai. Wow, we have a diverse audience from all over India. Okay, so Sanpada, Uttar Pradesh, Kerala. Okay. Okay, Kerala, cool. Thank you so much, everyone. Um, in this session, we are going to look at some of the details about espionage, about spying, about uh, how one country spies upon the other country. And from there, we are going to look at various different stories. So as we get started, just a minute, let me start sharing some of my slides, because these slides are merely a smooth transition into what we are going to witness. Because when it comes to spying, many things come to our mind. What comes to your mind when I say the word a spy? How do you envision a spy? Can you put that in the chat window as well? Let's look at your view of it. A person looking secretly at others. All right, Albus, thank you. Any magic involved in that? Someone illegally accessing private info, trying to gain secrets from others, understanding their moves. All right, very good, very good. Spying on as a person's privacy, okay. Trying to get data, exploiting a sort of vulnerability and thus getting RCE or for the victim's device. Whoa, Keshav, you have just given the entire step-by-step into the machine itself by using a remote code execution. Okay, fantastic. But that is purely getting into the cyber offensive field. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I believe all of you are very close to the picture. Getting our personal info and selling them. Well, not our info mostly. You won't be selling your information, you'd be selling someone else's information.
So like bank
Okay.
details and something like that.
Oh, yes, yes, certainly. Bank details, email IDs, phone numbers, all of these are information which is sold on the black market. So as earlier, email IDs were the big thing. Okay, people used to sell email IDs, like valid email IDs, for $5 per email ID, a valid phone number, and an entire information package about one identity was sold as low as $10. But then there's always the demand and supply. As the supply kept growing and growing, what do you think happened to the price? Price went down. Now people don't care about that. What people care about is remote access. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to go in a chronological manner, which is why in this entire presentation, while I do have some slides, at any point of time, if you have a question or if you have curiosity on a certain topic, feel free to put that into the chat so that I can take a look at it. And then maybe I can also take help from the moderators, because if there are a lot of questions, then the moderators can keep an eye on them and ensure that every one of those questions is handled. All right, let me get started. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So let's get started here. First, let me talk about me. I am a passionate storyteller. I tell stories to kids, I tell stories to adults, and I also tell stories to board of directors. Depending on the audience, I choose my stories. And depending on the topic as well, I choose my stories. And that's why today I am super excited with a lot of different stories that I have brought for you to give you a perspective of what espionage is all about. I'm also a mentor. I mentor professionals from more than 17 countries on advanced security. I have been a mentor in the Stanford for more than years now. And over the weekend, when I do the expert sessions with all the participants, we take deeper dive into the stories, we play some games, and everybody walks away with a message that they are excited to implement on Monday morning as they get into the office. I'm also an information security manager, where I manage the security for a financial organization. And I'm also an incident responder. The reason I mentioned that separately is because incidents keep happening, and especially during these holiday seasons. Have you guys heard about Log4j? Has someone already spoken about this in the conference? So Log4j, okay. Log4j is wreaking havoc right now as we speak. Many security teams have worked the previous weekend and the weekend before, mainly because Apache has the logging mechanism, and that logging mechanism has a feature. The feature is you can make this special package to parse the logs and get some additional information, and using that information you can take more actions. But what the attackers did is, instead of actual information, they started putting a URL to their own website, so making the servers to go onto their website and download some malicious code, and they get hacked. And the most craziest thing is, it does not require any technical expertise. If you know exactly what URL to put where, you can do this. I have been giving demos about this vulnerability to multiple companies, even on LinkedIn, where we did a demo on LinkedIn how it is vulnerable. So yes, that's all about me. This is the background that I come from. Can we give a demo now? If we have time towards the end, I will try to give a demo, but it seems a bit difficult. But however, I would want to share with you that I have another session on 30th. So if we can't cover it today, we'll certainly cover it on 30th. All right, so let's get started here. This is W. Averill Harriman. He is the United States ambassador to the Soviet Union. Should not say he is, I must say he was. And this first story begins. I'm sorry, I think somebody needs to mute themselves. All right. So this first story happens way back in the 1945. That's when this happened. And what happened here is every country has an embassy. So let's say India has embassies all over the world in every country. And then US also has embassies all over the world. So when US had this embassy in Russia, at that time, a few kids went to the Russian embassy. What is an embassy? Okay, interesting question. Thank you, Elvis. Although in the okay, so an embassy, what it is that is a land. Let's say on the Russian land, you have been given 2,000 square foot of US land. That's where the US embassy is. You would see many characters in different movies running towards the embassy of their own country because the local police cannot touch them over there. They have got diplomatic immunity the moment you step in. And that embassy is where the rules of that country also apply. So when India has an embassy in the US, if there is any Indian who is staying in the United States and they want to, let's say, renew their visa, they should go to the embassy. If somebody's lost their passport, where do they go? They go to the embassy. So now imagine this: US and Russia are arch enemies of each other, but they have got offices in each other's country. Don't you think Russians would be interested to know or to hear what the US guys are talking about, right? So here what happened next. 1945, a bunch of school kids dressed in their sharp school uniforms with smiles on their face walked into the US embassy in an official program where what they delivered to this person was the thing. This is the symbol of United States, the eagle. Now these kids carved this eagle into a wood and then framed it, and they gave it as a token of affection to Mr. W. Averell Harriman. 1945 to 1962, this eagle was hanging in that office, okay? And now all the discussions are happening, and nobody thought there could be any kind of issues until there was one telephone operator. That telephone operator was doing a phone call, and while he was connecting the call, because back then there were no international calls, so the telephone operators had to connect a call from the Russia to, let's say, Britain or back to the US. That telephone operator suddenly heard a British accent, and he identified the voice of the British attaché. The person who was representing Britain was sitting inside the US embassy, and they were doing some talks. Immediately, an alarm was raised. The news was sent back to the US, and they sent an investigator. Now, they did not know where the bug is. They kept looking for the entire embassy, looking for the bug. Now, everything else was searched. They was literally scanned, but nothing was found until, and they found out that, okay, this seems like a false positive and there is nothing bad here. It must be some kind of an interference. So while they closed that case, they continued to listen in for any second appearances, and it happened 2 years later. But this time it was much more dramatic, because the House of Speakers, who was present inside that office speaking, and suddenly his voice is now captured by the bug and being broadcasted to the entire office, and all the heads turned towards the office, and everyone just had one skip of a heartbeat, because for all these years everything that they were saying was being heard by the Russians. And as many of you very intrigued, and I can see that there are conversations already happening in the chat. Very good. Keep doing that. Sorry. So this is a case that was picked up, and it had a lot of, I would say, news coverage. Everybody was curious. How can an embassy be bugged? So what they found was this bug, the reason it was not captured is because it did not operate all the time. It was activated remotely. Now, how was it activated remotely? Because somebody who was beyond the fence of the US embassy could remotely activate that. And the bug picked up the conversation, transmitted that on a radio frequency, and that's how it was caught. And then it went back to sleep. From that point onwards, the US embassy was on high alert, and the war, or I would say, the culture of espionage started to evolve. This is from 1945. But I love the clarity of the image, the person who captured this image. Don't you? They have captured the moment in an exact way. Even looking at the photo, rather photo capturing abilities of those times, I think this is a brilliant capture. Now, what happens next? As we start to identify any adversary, we need to understand attribution. Whenever there is any attack that's happening, the first thing that people want to know is what happened. And the second question always is, who did it? And that's where the attribution comes into picture. Whenever there is any attack happened, how does anybody know if it was really the Russia, or was it China, or was it Ukraine who actually conducted that attack? That's where the first point of the attribution is the individual, the person who was caught. When they find that individual, the next point of attribution is what is their qualifier. And in the end, the big game that is being played, that's the high event motivation. Okay, so this is the cycle of attribution. And at this point, I would just stop sharing and I want to speak with you. Because in the process of attribution, what we must remember is, while we try to identify who did it, we should also understand the motivations behind it. Because imagine if you have a super duper secret. Let's say you have developed the next coronavirus vaccine, and it is present in your office or in your lab. So then the first question that comes to mind is, who would want access to it? Why would they want access to it? The next question that comes to my mind is, what kind of resources do they have? Because just having the resources is not enough. You should also have the sophistication to actually do it. So answering all of these questions, that's where that's really the attribution comes into picture. Now, in this segment, what we saw so far was happening with a different country. But has it not happened in India? Well, we saw something similar in the Pulwama attack as well. Now, in the Pulwama attack, what happened was there was one individual who had a tiff with the Kashmir or the army in Kashmir. And as a result, his mind vengeance. But he did not have the resources. He did not have the knowledge. So what did he do? He joined a militant group. That's where the second level of attribution comes in, the group. Then he was sent beyond the border where he was trained. He was given the resources that he did not have. Then he came back. After that, he had a lot of explosive, which he literally dumped into a truck and slammed it directly into a police truck where the Indian soldiers were traveling in that. And if you have been watching the news, then I'm quite sure that this picture would be of familiarity. This is the initial investigation that started immediately after the attack began. And if you remember, at that time, the Indian hacker community was so active and they were so angry, they were so pissed that they wanted vengeance as well. Now, taking a small detour, I want to share some information about that as well. Would you want to know what the Indian hackers did after the Pulwama attack? Give me a yes in the chat if you would want to hear that. Okay, thank you. What the Indian hackers did is they started attacking all the Pakistani domains. They started doing remote code execution there, defacing the website. In fact, one hacker even altered, or rather abused, the Google's search engine algorithm in such toilet paper, the picture that you would see is of Imran Khan. And that's where the Indian hacker community was rejoicing. And they were doing a DDoS attack on multiple websites, mainly the pak.gov websites. So while these cyber attacks were happening, about 2 weeks later, as the attacks were at their peak, all the attack stopped immediately. Can you guess why? The attacks stopped after some time. And the reason was of the surgical strike that was carried. That surgical strike sent such a strong message that all the hackers took attribution, all the hackers stopped, and they said, okay, I think this is vengeance delivered. Now, this is where things are geopolitical in nature. It's a cause and effect, cause and effect. Now, this takes us to the next part of the story. Friends help friends. Now, this story is quite unique. Now, before we go further, has it happened to you that during the peakest of the Corona times, when there was, what is geopolitics? Okay, I'll talk about that. When in the Corona times, it had happened that the moment you saw that there was a new information about the virus, you were calling your mom and saying, hey, ma, I just heard about this. Don't go out and put on a mask and do this. Were you doing this with your friends, your family? No. Who were you sharing this information with? Okay. Well, you should in future. If you do see any kind of threat which is rising and you have attribution, you know that the threat is confirmed. Well, everyone watches news, but that's also where there is a lot of, I would say, there's a lot of noise in that news. Will this come at YouTube? I'm not sure. We need to ask the organizers. However, let's come back to this case now. Now, just what I was doing is I am a part of multiple Telegram groups. And in those Telegram groups, we were getting information of how the people need help. Like one person who needed an ambulance in the middle of the night because they were losing platelets. Somebody needed an oxygen cylinder. So we were putting on an entire workforce, helping those people. If we need help, we're calling our doctor friends, getting them to help. And it was a 24/7 operation during those times, especially in the second wave. So friends keep helping friends. In a very similar way, the French called the US Embassy and they said, bonjour, we have some information for you. Yes, I can't talk on this now, but I need you to call on a secure line and he disconnected the call. That's when they had an encrypted communication, because there are some phones which can only talk on a secure encrypted lines where the encryption keys are already exchanged. On that line, the French superiors informed in somewhere in their systems, and that bug was quite severe. US needs to take an action immediately. Oh, yes, yes. There are lots of people who have lots of accents, my friend. But yes, thank you. Now, in this case, what the US did is, first of all, the first rule of espionage is don't believe whatever you're hearing. But when a friend gives you a call and tells you that they have just been through this, they had to do something. So immediately, the US sent an investigative team to their embassy. Now, this team went in, and their purpose was to start the investigation without letting the people know, because they knew that the Russians are watching. So, what they did is they started to pack different, I would say, parts of the embassy. All the furniture they were packing, they were loading it into the trucks, and in the middle of the night, during the peak traffic times, and also at different times. So they like 3 different trucks moving furniture from the US embassy. US embassy is actually a 10-story building. And imagine all the 10-story building, each and everything had to be shipped all the way to the US. When they started to ship all that information to the US, the first question was in the people's mind. Working in the embassy, is somebody a traitor here? Now, they did not know it. Nobody knew, because this was top secret. They kept investigating. They got everything back to US. Now, this is where the NSA, you must have heard about the NSA, the FBI, of investigation, and they have their own jurisdictions as well. So when the NSA got all of this furniture back in the US, they started scanning it. They scanned it first with X-ray, then their experts looked at it, and just like the last time, 1945, even this time, it took them some time, but eventually they found it. They found something that was so unique that they had not even thought about it, that this can happen. The reason I have this typewriter in front of you is IBM had created some special typewriters during those times, and they were quite a big hit. As you can imagine, there were no computers back then, so everybody was working on typewriters. You need to start typing, and the whole the thing over here. Let me just show you. Okay, the one over here, this will go straight to the left, and you'll have to push it back. I think they have flipped the image, so it is somewhere over here. So this is the one you will need to flip to the right again and start typing. Has any of you worked on a typewriter, or has any of you seen it? Okay. Perhaps in the last birth. All right, cool. No. Okay. Yeah, even I have not seen a typewriter for a long time, until I visited a cafe in HSR layout, Bangalore. There I saw a very similar looking typewriter, and that reminded me of this story. And I thought I'll share this story with all of you. So yes, those typewriters were the only thing, and people used to take pride that they have learned a typewriter back in those days. Instead of actually just typing it, somewhere inside the typewriter was a bug, and that bug was over here. So what this bug was doing is, it was capturing the sound of the typing. So every key that was typed had its own specific sound. That sound is being captured by the bug over here. And if you look at the network diagram, what this was doing was, let's say this is the typewriter over here. This typewriter was connected to a wall. Each of the walls also had receivers. These receivers were connected to the poles. So this is the US embassy right here. Over here, there are some poles. So the typewriter will connect to the wall will connect to the pole, and the pole will connect to the USSR. And USSR is nothing but the Russian government. So this is the game that was being played. And the interesting thing is, initially when they were shipping all this material back to the US, the person who was investigating it, his reputation was on the line. Because what if all of this is for nothing? What if all of this is just a hoax? Then US will become a laughing stock in front of the world, even though it was done in a secretive way, but the news always finds a way to come out. So now that they found this bug, what to do with it? So what they did is they started to do a reverse engineer of this. And this very, if you put a bomb and blast it out, oh yeah, that's certainly a very aggressive way of responding to it, Albus. But what I'm trying to say is, when they found this bug, at that time, they started to do a reverse engineering. Now, reverse engineering is where you take something and you literally open it apart and try to understand how it works. That is called as a reverse engineering. So they started to do reverse engineering of this bug and understand how it functions, what all information is going out. And most importantly, what is the lesson that we can learn from this? The lesson that they learned is, there are bugs. It's possible that the bugs are present everywhere. So now the next thing they did was, we have looked at the furniture. We found bugs in the typewriter. Where other places can the bugs be? Then they started looking at the floor, and guess what they found? There were bugs inside the floor as well. They were sitting on top of a landmine of bugs. Then there is some other unique place where they did not expect it. Do you know door stoppers? Even the door stoppers had a special kind of bug. All of these are separate incidents, but I'm giving you a quick summary that learning from the typewriter incident, and this was a very special project. This project was called as the Project Gunman. Okay, I'll write it down in the chat for everyone. Project Gunman. This is a very famous Carpenter was helping the USSR. Okay, you are going in the right direction, Albus. Okay, now see, let's say we are India and we want to build an embassy in the Russia. Can we build our own thing over there? No, we need help from the local people, local contractors. Even if we bring our own contractors, our own material, we still need a few things. You need electricity, you need water, you need food and supplies. All of these things have to be taken from the local land where you are. Now that's where the risk comes in. Do you know what cybersecurity is all about? Cybersecurity is not about hacking. Cybersecurity is not about the shiny firewalls or the code or the matrix revolutions. Cybersecurity is all about risk management. It's about identifying the risk that you have and manage that risk. When you are crossing the road, you are doing a risk assessment there. When you're driving a bike, you are doing risk assessment in a live scenario. We need to do the same thing when we are in the cyber world as well. So this was the Project Gunman. This is the US Embassy. This is the old US Embassy that was bugged. And do you see the poles over here? The receivers of the information. the receivers who are then connected over here, and I'm sure the information leaks from there. So this is all, in fact, if you look at this entire espionage game, it's a game of shadows and mirrors. What is it? What we see in the movies, 60% of that is all make-believe. 40%, the remaining one, is exaggeration. And the actual 10% that happens on the ground, that is our subject for this discussion. Are you enjoying this talk so far? What do you think? Give me a few reactions in the chat. What are your thoughts so far in this discussion? I love a quote about history, because Abhinav spoke about history. Those who don't study their history are condemned to repeat it. I'll repeat. Those who don't study their history are condemned to repeat it. Which is why knowing about these stories, knowing about these slips and the misses is very important for us to know where we are going next. So when we identify an adversary, okay, when we identify an adversary, what are the 6 different things that we should really understand about them? The first one is resources. What kind of resources do they have? What kind of capabilities do they have? Now let's talk about each of these a little bit. There is a keyword in the hacking domain, and that keyword is called as state-sponsored hackers. Okay, what is it is, all right, some of you don't know. This is where the government will employ people. The government will train these people, and then the government will also give them missions. A mission could be to infiltrate a specific attacker group or a terrorist group. A mission could be launching a state-sponsored attack on a different country to take their entire computing infrastructure to halt. Maybe in the future session, we can discuss how one virus took an entire country to a halt. That's a 1-hour story, different time. So the first thing we need to understand is what kind of resources do they have? What do we mean by resources? By resources, we mean people, process, and technology, PPT. What kind of people do they have? Do they have expert hackers? How many of them exist? What kind of computing infra do they have? Oh, people started to annotate on the screen. All right, that's interesting. Disable annotation for others is enabled now, but see, that's a risk. I did not happen here. Just a minute, let me clear all drawings. Thank you. Okay. So resources. What kind of resources they have when it comes to computing ability? You must have heard about something called as quantum computing. They say that right now, quantum computing, and it's a topic that I teach in the advanced cybersecurity course for Stanford. And this is done through Great Learning. So when I'm teaching that course, the audience is completely mind blown about how quantum computing and mainly how quantum cryptography works. And the whole concept is we are using the speed of light, the speed of photons, and using that for our advantage. And the way we are doing that is by increasing the speed with which we do things. So for example, if you have an 11 character password, okay, and this 11 character password it has special characters, it has caps lock, it has small letter characters, like the best kind of password you can imagine. How long will it take for you to brute force that password? Can I have some answers in the chat, please? How long do you think it will take to brute force an 11 character password that has all kinds of things? Okay, 3 minutes is definitely an understatement. 1 year, still an understatement. 30 minutes for a quantum computer, absolutely right. ABH, thank you. 2 lifetimes, Anish is the closest so far. The answer is 400 years. It's going to take you 400 years to crack an 11 character strong password with the current computing ability. However, with the help of quantum computing, you can do it just like that. And that's why this gave birth to quantum cryptography. People are already working on that to encrypt and decrypt with the computing powers of quantum computers. So now imagine if a hacker is sponsored by the government, the hackers can be given access to this quantum computing. And then all this SHA-256, MD5, MD6, and all of these would just be like cracking a small little egg for all the quantum computing. So that's why resources are very important. What kind of capabilities do they have? What is the average internet speed of that country? If a country, let's say any underdeveloped country whose average internet speed is so low that even if they want to, they cannot launch a massive DDoS attack on somebody like AWS and take them down because they don't have the capability. Then the third and the most important is the intent. Okay, I also teach public speaking, and in public speaking there is a concept. The concept is, when you are the speaker, there are two things that matter the most. First is your intent, second is your content. Okay, two things that matter in public speaking: intent and content. And also the speaker and the speech have to be inseparable. So with all of these, what is the intent of the hackers? Do they want to take down something and cause a denial of service? Do they want to have access to information of the other country and use that for their advantage? Do they want to hire some spies and continue to have persistent access to these resources? What is the intent? Now you have got the intent, you have got the capabilities, you have a lot of resources, but you know what? You are low on motivation because you are a happy-go-lucky guy. There is nothing bad happening in your life. You will not be motivated to do this. And you know, when I was watching an interview by the Raw chief while preparing for this talk, and what he said is, it's the most important thing is to understand the next human being sitting in front of you. What is their motivation? Sometimes, even if they are not in a danger, you can make someone believe that they are in a danger. And just by doing that, they are now in a state of mind that they are completely going to listen to you and do whatever you say. Or as it happened in one of the I think agents from FBI, his name was John Walker. It's a very famous case again, where he was in need of money. So he literally walked into the Russian embassy and said, hey, you know what, I can sell the secrets to you. And he started to get a lot of money as well. As a result, he got really rich. But now one thing that he could not resist was to show off. The moment he started to show off, he was caught. And Walker is still a legend in a negative way in the US, I would say, in this entire community of spies. So let's say you have found somebody who has financial problems, and now you are the person who is their angel. Yeah, Walker walking in. I know there's an irony in that. So, so let's say you are motivated because you desperately need money, and now there is a foreign agent who is ready to give you $500,000 if you put that USB stick inside a computer of your office. And by the way, this is also a real story. This story happened. This is now not in history. This happened, I would say, less than 2 years ago, where there is a person who works for a very famous car making company. He's not a star athlete, and he is also not somebody who is a very influential. Okay, he's not somebody very influential, but suddenly he got a friend request, and this guy is also from Russia, just like the person that we are talking about. Let's call him Greg. Greg is from Russia, and he found another person from the same country, and he's like, "Hey, bro, let's hang out." So they start hanging out, and the other guy starts to pay all the bills for every lunch and every dinner that they had. And now Greg is curious, why is he doing all this? So one day, Greg calls his bluff. He takes out his phone, switches it off, and keeps it aside. And he says, "If you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to put your phone in this glass jar." The guy completely lost it. And he said, "Okay, okay, 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 don't do that. Okay, I understand. Okay, don't get emotional here. I'll help you. Wait." He said, "I have an offer for you. I've got this USB stick. If you walk into your company and put this USB stick in the computer, wait for 6 hours, I can give you $500,000 in cash, in Bitcoin, you decide." Now, the guy was completely taken aback. Greg didn't know what to do. So, what he said is, "Okay, I can do it, but I don't want $500,000. I want 1.5 million. And guess what? The other guy agreed. He said, "Sure, let's plan it out." Now, on the day of the assault, when it was going to happen, what Mr. Greg did is he walked into the field office of FBI, and he gave them that USB stick. And the people arrested the person. And do you know what was the plan? The plan was to shut down the entire factory that was making the lithium batteries. And that guy was working for the company called as Tesla. In fact, you can go on Twitter and look for this tweet where the Tesla CEO thanked this person in public for saving this company from a disastrous attack that could have happened, because they were, oh yeah, oh yes, I'm getting a lot of information on the chat. Very good, people, very good. I'm really happy to see that all of you are so aware of what's happening out there. So Elon Musk did thank him publicly, because otherwise they would have had to pay at least $5 million of ransom. And that was a ransomware attack. So you see, once we have the motivation, what comes next? Access. What did the Russian guy want Greg to do? Access the computer, plug in the USB. And now, last but not the least, is risk aversion. Risk aversion is how far can you go to cover your tracks. Now, this is where I believe that the other guy did not go to the next extreme end. If he had gone there, he would have killed Greg immediately and disappeared. But he had trust in Greg to a way too much of a level, and he got caught. So this is how you identify an adversary. So far, what we understood is the game of espionage is the game of information that you want to capture from the other person. Now, at this point of time, you all must be thinking, "Oh no, this is all good, very good stories, but these are just stories. What can I do?" Would you guys want to take up a goal for the next 3 years? Maybe someone might end up doing it. Who would want to hear a powerful goal that can motivate you to do something in the field of cybersecurity? Give me a me in the chat if you would be interested. Okay, thank you. Keep giving, keep going. Fantastic. All right. So there is a conference by the name DEFCON. Okay, I'm going to write it down here. There is a conference by the name DEFCON. DEFCON is one conference where a lot of people come in, they learn many things, and most importantly, they compete. There are lots of popular competitions out there. One competition is given by NATO. That's the NATO Cybersecurity Championship. This is where countries send their representatives who will be then ranked, and the countries feel proud of what their rank is at the time. Now, in DEFCON, there is a competition for social engineering. Now, in that competition, what happens is there's an entire auditorium filled with hackers. People apply for these competitions at least 3 months in advance. And if your form is very good, you are accepted. Then they will give you a public company as a target. And they will give you certain information that you need to collect. When you do your OSINT, okay, I'm going to write that another keyword here, OSINT, that is open source intelligence. You do your own open source intelligence and pick up enough information about that company. You put that in the form and you give it to the evaluators. If your form is interesting enough, my friends, you can be picked up for the DEFCON competition, and you would be among those few people who will be competing in that contest. What happens there is a soundproof telephone booth. I've got 6 minutes left, and I'm going to make the best use of that. So there is a soundproof telephone booth. Each contestant will go inside the telephone booth. They make a phone call to their target. If you want to make one phone calls or 10 phone calls, completely up to you, because that is based on your OSINT. So you make the phone call, you talk to that person, and you get all the flags that they have given. The flags could be, what is the make and model of the computer that they're using? What kind of VPN are you using? What kind of encryption is going on? Where is your data center located? All of this. And there are many more advanced flags as well. You need to capture just by having a friendly conversation. This is where you get to polish your social engineering skills. So the goal that I want to give you is apply for this competition and get selected. And don't give up if you don't make it through in the first year. The person who won it 2 years ago, that lady tried for 4 years in a row. The first year, she just went in as an audience member, completely intrigued. She was having a light bulb moment constantly. Because while the person goes inside the phone booth and making the calls, everybody outside can hear what they're saying. And they get completely flabbergasted by the information that one can collect just by making the right phone call. So do this, apply for that, and if you do get selected, tag me on your LinkedIn post and thank me for on that day. Because my friends, it is not just getting a job, it is not buying a house, it is not just having a good bank balance, but what really motivates us are the powerful goals that we have. So in the next year, coming year 2022, set yourself some powerful goals. They are going to motivate you. Okay, now we have been talking about espionage, we spoke about the DEFCON, we spoke about the goals. Answer to Anil's question to me is, I'm sure there are. All right, so now I'm going to show you a few more slides and we'll stop there. This is 33 Thomas Street. This is a look at how tall this building is. And the most unique part about this building is it doesn't have a window. None of the floors have any windows because computers do not need windows. This is a completely unmanned operation. This is an information collection place for a mass surveillance. It is owned by the National Security Agency or NSA. And this building has a code name of Titan Point. And there are multiple such information collection points all over the world. And do you know who controls them? There is an organization by the name Five Eyes. US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. These are the countries who are a part of the Five Eyes organization. This is a non-profit organization. It is again one friend helping another friend. And the reason we have this alliance over here is internet backbone. Did you know that all the internet that we are accessing, all of them have a backbone? There are huge pipes that travel under the sea. They actually carry the information. And at that point, there is also another, I would say, very important concept. And that concept is called as transit authority. What transit authority means is, if information, let's say China is talking to Russia, but somehow that information goes through USA, then USA has complete access and legal rights to view that information. That's called as a transit authority, which is why all of these information collection points are used to collect intelligence about the terrorist operatives, encrypted phones, drug operations, underground hacking groups planning something. This is what is being monitored by the countries. So the message that I want to leave you with is keep your eyes and ears open. The first thing that, rather the first step towards this journey is to be aware of what is the genesis, where did it all start? And the next thing you should know is, where is it going? And at that time, we need to ensure that we are hearing about these kind of events happening in the world. You are reading the right kind of documents. You're following the right kind of people on LinkedIn. And talking about LinkedIn, I will be giving my LinkedIn profile in the chat very soon. If any of you would like to get connected with me, feel free. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them over there. But before that, if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. So, any questions? What is dark web? Oh, thank you so much for that question, Albus. All right. There are three different levels of the internet. There is the surface web, there is a deep web, and there's a dark web. So usually when you open a website, you resolve the domain name of that website, you get the IP address, and then you access the site. But what if I create a secret group of websites whose names cannot be resolved by anyone else except my servers? And then what if I create an encrypted network of computers who are capable of doing that? That encrypted network is called as Tor, the onion routing. Through the Tor network, you can access the underground forums, also called as the dark web. This is where the weapons are sold, drugs are sold. This is where killers are hired. This is where Bitcoin is sold. This is also where zero-day exploits are sold on the black market. Sir, can a VPN, how do they access it? I think that's a very different session. Albus, I appreciate your curiosity. Maybe I'll try to access it or rather cover it in the next session. Okay, so can VPN protect you from the attacks mentioned? Can a hacker know our real location? I would say VPN can protect you, but only from a confidentiality perspective. When we talk about cybersecurity, we have confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That triangle is the one where everything goes inside that. So you want to ensure that your information is available. So follow the best practices. Have two-factor authentication enabled on every email. Because today, you register to any website with your email address and you use the same password that you have for your email ID on that website. tomorrow that website gets hacked and all the credentials are dumped on the internet. So now your email address and password are on the internet. But if you have two-factor authentication enabled, you can still be protected. So this is also where there is a website called as Have I Been Pawned? I'll ping this website to you. You can all check your email address over here and confirm if it is compromised or not. If you do see it is compromised, it is present in any kind of a public breach, you can immediately change your password. Okay, so yes, I'll take maybe one more question and we can pause there. NSA, is there, and what is an NSA equal in India? Well, in India, we do have our own CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team. And just about 2 days ago, there was a news that the Indian government, okay, and the Indian government is actively building a unique cyber cell, which is focused on doing this kind of an espionage activity, monitoring these activities, and most importantly, building the intelligence circle there. We already have the raw RANW who are doing the human level of this intelligence work. We have our cyber cells, we have our CERT, and there are many people who take care of the security very well. In fact, I was trained by one such person about 6 years ago, and he was sharing so many stories with us. He told us that whenever the Indian embassy or the Indian government offices receive any kind of a hardware device, they first open all the device and check, are there any chips coming in from Russia, China, or any other banned countries? If they find a single chip from those countries, they return all these devices back to the manufacturer. Those are the strong policies we have. So don't underestimate the cybersecurity we have in the Indian infrastructure as well. There are so many initiatives going on in that direction. Okay, so now I told you that you need to keep your eyes and ears open. Now, what do you look for? That's what we will cover in the next session on 30th, where I will talk about the agenda for 2022. With that, I would like to hand the stage back to the organizers, Mr. Arvind. Thank you so much, Arvind, for inviting me here. Thank you, Great Learning, for giving me this opportunity. And thank all of you for being here in such a big number, 97 people we had in this meeting. And I believe you have been so lively audience. I have rarely seen a college audience so lively. I have rarely seen professionals being answering to each and every question and being aware. So kudos to you for being here. I would like all of you to use the Zoom emoji and give yourself a huge round of applause virtually. I wish we were all here together. We would have taken a selfie. Well, we can still take that selfie now. If you guys are okay, you can just start your videos and we can quickly take a virtual selfie. Is that okay? Hey, Albus, where is your beard? Okay, cool. All right, thank you, Manoj. Thank you, everyone. Keep starting your videos and we'll take a quick selfie and I can share that on the platforms. I have already given my LinkedIn credentials or other my LinkedIn URL in the chat, not the credentials, and you can get connected to me. I keep sharing a lot of information there. All right, thank you so much, guys. It's okay if your camera is not working, it's all right. Cool. Thank you, Adarsh. Everyone. So what common pose do we give? It should look an interesting selfie, right? Give me a good pose. Everybody will do the same pose. Let's do that. Oh yeah, this is cool. Yeah, this is good. Okay. So let's do 1, 2, and 3. I would need Arvind to take the selfie here. All right, Arvind. Okay. 1, 2, and cheese. Very good. Now I'll take a selfie myself with my computer. One more time. 1, 2, and cheese. Superb. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with all of you, and I'm going to this day. And I'm looking forward to meet all of you again on 30th of December. Thank you so much. And over to you, Arvind.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful
Thank
talk.
you,
This
sir.
was really informative. I'm sure this will really help our participants and motivate them further to explore the field of cybersecurity. Thank you so much. Um, thank you to the participants as well for joining in today. This was really great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for great learning for sponsoring such a wonderful event and giving an opportunity to all the students to learn more about cybersecurity, to know what to learn, what to do the next after their college or after their professional. So, and sir, actually, it was a wonderful talk from your side. Like all things went like a story, a good story, and it was never bored. Frankly speaking, from my heart, it was never bored. It went like a cool story. We learned so many things. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next talk on 30th. We hope the same over there also. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas to all of you. Enjoy and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Same to you, sir.